We are very lucky today to have Susan McGinnis with BenX and Chip Seay with Hometown Insurance. Speaking about something that obviously, some people don't find exciting, but it's much like the government. Even if you don't care about it, it cares about you, and it'll affect you one way or the other. So I believe we're going to start with Susan, going over the affordable Chip
first.
What I'm going to go over is what we would call like property and casualty for your business. We do property and casualties for homes and autos. We still do largely homes and autos, but we are doing a lot more business right now. And with that, we get a lot of questions, because if you're starting up a business, this whole thing about what insurance do I need, because people want to sell you everything in the world, but you probably don't need it, at least in the beginning. But there's some people who are going to require you to have things. We run into a lot of people that are taking big risks. I ran into a man who had 16 vehicles, and they were all driving around Tulsa, and he had them all insured in his private name. So if one of his employees wrecked the car, he would have been sued, and he had minimum liability. So people do a lot of things that are not good, but we're going to kind of give you the basic. There's about 5 different kinds of policies that businesses end up with. We got 6 things on here. The last one is bonds. But the 5 different kinds of policies that you may or may not need, and we can help you kind of decide what's necessary. The number one, and this is what I think just about everyone needs, is we call it a BOP, or a business owner's policy. Just like your house insurance has a lot of different things in it. It has coverage for the house, it has coverage for your contents, it has liability, it has money if you get forced out of your house to go live on. A BOP, a business owner's policy, does those same things. It's a bundle. People call us all the time and they say, all I need is general liability. That's all I need is general liability. Most of the time we can write you a BOP, a package for your whole business, and it's the same price. So you might as well get your liability along with coverage for your property and those other kinds of things. So the general liability, if someone gets hurt at your premises, or you or your employee does something accidentally that hurts someone, you're going to get sued for it. You want to have liability coverage that covers that, because it can devastate you financially for years. Property coverage. People say, I don't have anything. But if you lost your business with a tornado or a fire, you had to buy new desks and new computers or new tools. We have the work guys that drive their trucks around, and people steal the truck and they're in trouble. We have a landscaper who someone jumped in his truck with a trailer behind it, stole $20,000 worth of lawnmowers, weed eaters, all that stuff. If he didn't have coverage, his property would have been gone. He would have been out of business. So you want coverage for your property. Business income, at the last chamber luncheon, they talked about disasters. Business income, basically, if there's a disaster, is the money to get you back in business. So business income is going to cover your lost income. You have bills and obligations, you have employees, but if something happens to your business and you don't have income coming in, how are you going to keep your employees employed? This helps pay their salaries. It gives you money in the place of what you lost because of the disaster. Business interruption helps you get set back up. You have to move across town because there's a tornado. It pays the expenses of moving your cable, of moving your internet, of renting a new office, of all the things involved in starting over. Non-owned auto. This is one of those liability issues people don't think about. But your employee jumps in their car and they run to the post office. And along that route, they have their car insurance, but they have a wreck, and it's their fault. Someone is going to sue them, and lawyers today are not only going to sue the person driving the car, but they're going to sue your business. You say, well, why are we getting sued? Because they were doing work for you. So when they're running to the post office, let's say for the chamber can get sued from that, even though that's not the chamber's car. And so we add on to the BOP most of the time what we call non-owned auto. So you're still covered, even if it's one of your employees or somebody done something for you as an accident. Data breach is now becoming huge. Think about your clients and the number of social security numbers you have, and birth dates and personal information. You are responsible for that. If someone hacks into your computer or breaks into your office and gets into your file cabinet, you now have a legal responsibility to notify everyone who could have been, not necessarily was, but could have been compromised. And look at the cost of that, and the last I saw was somewhere around like $40 per person, just the notifications you legally have to do. We've got 3,000 clients basically, and if we had to pay $40 each for them, somebody's bonuses would be going away really quick. I mean, that would be a bad time for our company. So a data breach is something that we can also put inside of your BOP. And then the package usually is geared towards your individual business or type of business. So if you work in a bank, there's a package policy for bankers or financial advisors or realtors or whatever your business might be. And so it's customized with coverages that you might need, things that you wouldn't normally think about. And so that's essentially what we have in a BOP.
You skipped over 4, sorry.
What did I skip? Employment practices. If someone decides you fired them unfairly or wants to say that you sexually harassed them at work. I know Crystal's had this issue 4 or 5 times. Is that right, Crystal?
You know,
Real
they're just too sensitive.
ongoing. I told you not to be slapping them when they walk by. But you don't have to do anything wrong to have trouble. You know, I mean, just the idea that you can be sued, if you've done everything right, you can be sued. And it can financially devastate you. Go hire a lawyer to a couple $100 an hour to defend you from something frivolous. Well, now this, we call it EPLI, Employment Practices Liability Insurance, actually pays for the lawyer to defend you up to whatever your limits are. And that's normally now we include in a BOP. Right? So there's a lot of things there that could just really protect you. I'm going to give you a copy. Any questions off of that? This is our insurance company's BOP, and so...
Your personal BOP?
For the company. This is for the company, yeah, for Hometown Insurance. And so I'm just going to let you see what is normally in the package. When you get your car insurance or your home insurance, you get like 2 pages, what we call a declaration page, and it declares what coverages you have. It says this is what's included. And I've highlighted for you there the kind of the general things, but the BOP, it shows the name of the company, it's got the effective date. This has our annual premium on it. So for all the coverage that I have, our total premium for a year is $1,500, which is really, really cheap. The minimum premium usually on a BOP is $500. And we have a lot of new businesses that start at $500 per year. So $40 a month, they can have good coverage. If you flip the page, you say I have a $1,000 deductible. It describes us as an insurance agency, so you know what's involved in that. We don't have building coverage. The building's covered by Spirit Bank.
Is that because you lease, you don't own?
Right.
So if you owned, there would be a fee there?
Right. So we could include that in there for whatever amount they need, but the building coverage can go in here. The business personal property is our desk, our furniture, our computers. I've got $65,000 on there. And then we have a replacement cost, and we also have personal property of others. So if one of my employees has articles in the office, they're covered up to that amount. I talked to one auto body shop. Someone broke in, they stole all the employees' tools. So those weren't covered under the policy they had. This is before we talked to them because they didn't have property of others. So your employee stuff isn't covered under your policy unless you add it into the BOP. Money and securities, so if we lost all the cash in our office, it's covered. You can bump these limits up if you need. You may not need that much. You can raise and lower them. When we first moved into our building, we had to pay for the build out. You don't think about that, but if the building catches on fire, who's going to pay to rebuild it? It's not going to be Spirit Bank, it's going to be me. So there's $40,000 coverage there for the build out into our building. So the carpet, the walls, that kind of stuff. Business income, so if we have to move, we're covered up to 30 days an extra expense. So Spirit Bank catches on fire, gets hit by a tornado, we've got money to go get us started with our business in a new location. Employee dishonesty. Someone in our office ripped me off financially. You know, I've got coverage up to $250,000 there. You can include equipment breakdown. We don't have anything we need included in that, but it's kind of part of the package. But if you have a high dollar piece of machinery, a printing press, things like that, you can actually include the breakdown on that equipment inside of your BOP. Identity theft recovery is there. Liability on the next page, we have $1 million liability. Someone comes into our office, slips, falls, gets hurt, that is under our liability up to $1 million. We got a little bit of medical, and that's kind of on top of that. Somebody says I insulted them, which I just can't believe. Crystal's offended because I said something about her EPLI, so she sues me. I've got it covered there. This is kind of big. Damages to premises rented to you. So if something happens in my office and a fire gets started and it damages Spirit Bank Event Center, they're going to be suing me. So this $1 million will cover any damage that we do to the event center. There's the EPLI. I'm not real worried about it. So I've only got $10,000, which is kind of the minimum on there, but I can raise that up and it's not that expensive. I have non-owned auto and hired auto. So we rent a car, it's covered. If I have an employee go somewhere, it's covered, and that same liability of $1 million. They're protecting us. Flip the page. I have a small loan with Regent Bank, so they're listed. So if you have a loan for your business, they're going to want to be listed on some kind of policy, know that they're going to get paid if something happens to you. I've got like a little one-page description on there of EPLI, and then because we're an insurance agent, towards the back we have what's called a stretch summary, and it has limitations for things that insurance agents run into a lot. We have coverage for our sign. I have a $6,000 sign out there that will replace. People don't think about that, but in Oklahoma, it happens all the time. Accounts receivable, laptops, employee dishonesty. You can see just a lot of those kinds of things that happen there. Even I think getting our website reestablished if something happens, but there's money for all those kinds of things that are kind of sort of generic for an insurance agency. Any questions on any of that? I know I'm going fast, but
Who's eligible for a BOP? Who's not eligible? Is that an easier way to answer it?
if you have a business, you can have a BOP. The main companies that we write are Travelers for Commercial CNA, which is a huge in Hartford, and we write a lot of theirs. And they want people who have been in business for a little while, some of that kind of stuff. There's things that they don't want. You know, they don't. These companies don't want a gun shop, let's say, or something like that. But we have other companies that write BOPs. I have a liquor distributor. You know, the big companies didn't want them, but the other people were glad to have them. I mean, pretty much any business is insured. Bars and nightclubs and all kinds of things are a little harder to place, but there's somebody out there that will make money off of them. So if you have a business, you can
qualify.
You can get a BOP. Yeah. The one thing that surprises me is how many people are doing business in their own personal name instead of getting an LLC. You know, not a lawyer, but if you're doing that, I'd encourage you to get some legal help and get an LLC or wear an S corp or something to protect yourself. Because in the last 4 or 5 years, I've seen the number of just frivolous, crazy lawsuits go up drastically. People are wanting easy, free money. Had a Kmart insured in Bartlesville for years, and the number of trips in the parking lot. I fell over the little curb, you know, and I want $50,000. It's just nuts, and you have to defend yourself from those things. So, you know, if you don't have some sort of business insurance, I'd encourage you to get something. We'd be glad to help you with that.
I have a couple questions,
Sure.
and then maybe something else you're going to cover. I guess it's the equivalent of malpractice. You're in the insurance business, we're in the public relations business. An errors of omissions. Is that something that's common in that, or is that a separate tool?
It's a separate policy, and we have it on the next page, so
Okay.
we'll touch on it for just a minute.
And then-
The liability in here is more of a getting hurt on the premises, or your employee accidentally sets a house on fire or something like
Okay.
that. Okay,
So possibly related to that, you work for a company, and usually it's the larger companies, energy companies, cities, engineers, and they say, we want to be listed too.
Yep.
We want to know that if your person drives their car to our site to have a meeting and somebody gets hurt,
Right.
we want to know you have $1 million in coverage, and we need to be listed on your accord.
We are gonna get that
Okay.
to you in just a second, okay? So let's go over to the second page, and I've got,
Can I ask you
Yes.
one question? Going back to the Kmart, can I summarize how insurance companies really handle the cost of defending you versus paying a claim? Is that all included in that limit?
When you see, like, we have $1 million liability, which is kind of getting to be the minimum now. A lot of times people get a $2 million liability and then even buy umbrella, which we'll talk about in a second. But it's that much that they'll pay for the claim plus the cost of the attorneys. So they'll pay for the attorneys separately. It irritates people a lot of times because they'll write someone a check for $5,000 just to make them go away. And they're like, well, why are they paying them $5,000 for falling down my parking lot instead of taking this to court and all that stuff? And it's just finances. I mean, it irritates us, but it's you don't want them fighting everything because your insurance would quadruple. So they make a decision about, is it worth us having lawyers there, on this claim, or should we settle for $5,000? If they get pushed, they'll go to court over little stuff, but the lawyers is on top of the liability.
Thanks.
A workers' comp, we're getting a lot of questions about now, and we're writing a lot of. If you have employees, you are legally required to have workers' comp insurance. Okay, so if you're sole proprietor, it's just you and your wife and your kids, you don't have to have workers' comp for them. But if you have a hired non-family member, you're legally required to have workers' comp. And if you don't have it, you are asking for trouble because someone gets hurt, one of your employees, again, you're financially wiped out. It's a percentage of what someone does. So if you have a secretary, it's a percentage of their salary, and it's very low because that's a pretty safe occupation. If your employees are climbing telephone poles and installing electric wires, the workers' comp is really high because it's a dangerous job. So, and it's fairly established, but we can help you with that, and help you to be legally compliant, to do kind of the smart thing. But anytime you have an employee who's not family, friends, or not family, friends, but family, you need to have workers' comp. Commercial auto is kind of a big one. If you're just driving your car around, usually you don't have to have commercial auto insurance. If you're driving to work and forth, you don't need commercial auto. But there's things that kind of trigger whether you have just your own personal car or if it needs to be a commercial insurance. One of those is if it's corporate owned. So if the cars are owned by a corporation, usually you need to have commercial. There's some differences on that, Amber. I know like Hanover will let us put a corporate owned policy on there, but we have to list the individual too.
Yeah, and then we just list the corporation as an additional insured, and that's really for your tax purposes.
If you're carrying materials or people for compensation, so if this happens quite a bit, but some kid gets a paper route and they are driving their car around, throwing papers in the morning. If they have a car wreck and they're insured with your basic personal lines policy, that company does not have to pay.
Because he was at work,
Because he's working out with the car.
doing a job.
Like even pizza delivery, and I don't necessarily know that the company, Monzio will tell you need to go get a commercial auto policy. That's not covered either.
Yeah. So delivery kind of things, if you're hauling a lot of materials for work, in the back of your truck or something like that. A lot of the companies, if you have the name of your business on the side of your vehicle and they come out, they will actually not pay the claim because they say that should be a commercial. We had a guy running a taxi service out of his car one time. You remember that? And, of course, he didn't tell us he was running a taxi out of his car, and he had a claim, and the insurance company's like, running a taxi, that's a commercial policy. And it's in that fine print, it says, these are personal policies. So you want to be careful about that. If you have any questions, we can help you out.
I have a question.
Sure.
On that. I use, WorldPay pays me like mileage. I turn in my mileage expenses to use my own car to go on client appointments. So do I need this, or is my personal insurance?
Your personal is fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not hauling anything.
Okay.
So if I put McGraw on my track car, I need to get commercial auto insurance?
Or make sure you have it rated as business use at least. But
I would talk to whoever your insurance company is, because the different companies will handle it different ways. And for some of them, it's just not an issue, but there's others of them that they'll make a big deal out of it. So
We have one. I have a gentleman that works for a meat company, and he does not do any deliveries. But they had a booth set up at like the Home and Garden Show, and he needed to bring some of the meat or whatever to the Home and Garden Show, and had an accident, and they were going to deny the claim.
A one-time delivery for a special event.
Yeah.
Do
I mean,
you,
we ended up.
do you drive clients to the buildings, to the houses? I know sometimes realtors will meet, but sometimes they'll also drive their
I
clients.
do both, so I need to fix that too.
You can have some exposure there.
The main things that I think you run into as a realtor, and we have a lot of realtors driving personal vehicles, is like Amber said, you have to watch insurance agents because they're selling you price, but sometimes you can end up hurting on coverage. And you want to make sure you have really good liability coverage. You want to make sure you have uninsured motorist coverage and those kinds of things. And with a personal policy, usually $250,000 is the maximum liability for a person. $500,000 total for an accident. You can buy an umbrella on top of it, but on a commercial policy, you get a lot more liability. The man I told you had 16 cars driving around town. He had $2,550 liability, the state minimum. Had him insured in his own name. We put him on a commercial policy. We got him $1 million liability for the 16 vehicles. We put him in the corporate name, and his premiums dropped. I mean, he saved money. So, the coverage, especially when you're using your vehicle in business, is more important even than the premium. So I talked to him and asked, is there a problem with me having the company name on there? Make sure that they haven't rated you like you're only using the car for pleasure when you're running a business. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Anything else? Professional liability you asked about earlier, and there's different names for this. Errors and omissions insurance is another one. We talked about liability if somebody comes in and gets hurt, but what if you give them bad information, or you omit something? You call your insurance agent up and you say, add this car onto my policy, and they never do it. Well, that's not like your regular liability, that's error and omissions. They've done something they shouldn't have done, or they've given bad information. It's kind of like a doctor doing malpractice insurance. And it's a whole different policy than what you see on your BOP and that liability. And depending on what kind of business you have, you want to have that and have that protection. Did you have a particular question, or were you just asking if it was a separate thing?
I guess just to be sure, it when and where you need it. I mean, I know in our line of work, with my particular organization, we don't work for Procter & Gamble nationwide. So I'm not particularly concerned that I'm going to create an ad and have a misprint of a price, and then it goes out to 5 million people, and then I'm the one that's holding the bag for the 2-cent difference. But there can be errors and omissions in terms of a mistake in something I created in text or an ad, or there could also be we give them our best consulting advice, but then maybe somebody's so unhappy because something didn't go the way they wanted that they decide we're the bad guy. Both for concrete financial things that you could say there's a price tag on this, as well as I don't like the advice you gave me. Are they the same? Are they different?
That would definitely be a professional liability
Okay.
kind of policy, and it's smart. My mom was a realtor, and the house didn't go through, and she got sued. And it was, I couldn't tell that she'd done anything wrong, but the people, they sued her, and it was like, it's not her fault. The other people didn't qualify, but the lawyer fees can drive you out of business. So professional liability is a smart thing to have. Depending on the type of business you have, I don't know, it's usually priced by the volume of business. So I've got like a fairly small business that I think their professional liability is $800 a year. We're doing like $5 million a year in business, and ours is $4,000, $5,000 a year. So the more business you're doing and the more people you're giving advice to exposure, the higher the premium is going to go. But probably starting in at $700-800 a year and going up. And what you do is a big deal too. Directors and officers, I don't know if we have anybody here that really applies to, but lately we've had, because people are so lawsuit crazy.
Our board's covered under ours, so.
turn into a big deal. You're running the Little League, and all of a sudden you're getting sued because Johnny didn't get to play, or someone got hit in the head with a bat, or something like that. People are absolutely lawsuit crazy right now. So if you have any exposure, that you think this is legitimate, or I could get in trouble here, and it's pretty cheap. It's just not that expensive.
Can I tail on that?
Sure.
Just, because I know we have a lot of volunteers and everything in here. One of the things, if someone does ask you to serve on a board, one thing you do want to ask them is if they have a directors and officers policy. Because since the boards have the fiduciary responsibility in organization, if something happened and, you're working for or volunteering for a small chamber, and the executive director embezzles all the money, it's the board's fault for not double checking the financials, and they can get sued by the businesses or anything. And this would be what would protect the volunteer from their personal liability on it. So just a heads up.
Well, I was on the board of directors at my homeowners associations, and an attorney was one of the residents in the neighborhood, and he was just fighting things, but it ended up not going. But again, they had the protection on the board, so we were covered, and it was dropped, but still, it can happen. So.
I know some of it sounds crazy, but the stuff we see, it's like unbelievable. If you are working with other people, especially like large organizations, this is something that we're doing 5 or 6 of these every day, it seems like right now. But this is called a certificate of liability, and depending on who you're working with, they will ask you for this type of thing. They want, there's kind of different levels in this. Your bank wants to know that they're covered. If they've loaned you money, they want to know that they're going to get paid if there's an issue. If your employees are going into someone's building, or they're doing something for those people, they want to know that they're going to be covered. You think about, I'll tell you one of the crazier ones that I've had happen recently. I have a client who answered the front door on his own house. Guys knocking on the door and say, "We're roofers, we want to take a look at your roof and see if you need a new roof." They climb up on the roof. He doesn't even, he's like, "Yeah, I guess you can look at it." They get off of the roof. One of the guys files a claim and says he got hurt on the man's roof. True. And he's like, I don't even hire these
Come to
people.
my house.
And he said, "Well, go file a claim on your workers' comp." Well, he wasn't an employee of that company. And this is before the man became my client, but we're finding this $5,000 claim on his home insurance. And it was that kind of a situation.
That's a scam.
Before you let someone on your roof, before you do business with somebody, you want to know they're insured. And this is basically the form that we use to show that.
In a business like that, also, some of those guys are subcontracted and may not be covered under the work comp certificate that they
That's what
show
they're
you.
contracting for.
So you need to make sure if a work like that's being done, you provided certificates for every business entity that's there, whether it's a subcontractor or.
So you hire a general liability to work, or a general contractor to work on your house.
They're gonna have subs.
He's got a painter in, he's got a plumber in. You want to know all those people are covered. This is the basic form that shows that we're the company insuring these people, blocked out their names. But then it lists for them their policies. These are all with CNA. But we have the general liability info on there. It shows that they have a $2 million liability policy. If they damage premises, it's $300,000. They have a $4 million aggregate again. So, thanks, Amber. The next line down shows automobile liability. People want to know when your employees drive on their premises that your employees are insured. So we're sending these all across the country all the time so that people
They're
basically.
getting wiser.
Hmm?
They're getting wiser because they're asking for this stuff.
Yeah.
Are you, would my organization be liable for getting a copy of my employee's driver's license and proof of their personal car insurance and keeping that updated every time that premium expires? Or, do you see what I'm saying? You can, sometimes they ask for that, but then who's responsible for keeping that current knowing that that's held?
What you really, I mean, what's gonna make this so much easier if you just have that hired and non-owned auto on there, on your policy, and then if your employee's insurance lapse, you're still covered.
Okay.
So that's, I mean, that's the way to go in there. And there's the little boxes kind of over on the left show what options that you purchased on your policy, and so you want to make sure you have that hired and non-owned auto.
And if my company had this and a client has to be added, am I paying extra for them to be added? It's paperwork for your organization, but if they're not added, they're not covered. If they are added, they are, but I don't pay an extra fee for that?
They're normally actually covered already because the
Okay.
commercial policy, and you can, you know, it can be a little bit different, but normally in the commercial policy, there's writing that says anyone that you have contractual obligation with is also the insured. So if you're working for Procter & Gamble and you have a contract with them, then they're also covered under your policy. But most of them nowadays are wanting to be listed as a certificate holder. Now, if they're a bank or something like that, where then they're, you know, maybe listed as a loss payee, there's different ways that they'll want to be listed on the policies. And we spend a lot of time just trying to make people happy, right? Because their lawyers all have different things to safeguard them. But
So it's as much a due diligence process as anything else, just to making sure that they have that paperwork and that they proved it on their end?
and most of them, or a lot of them now they won't write a check until they get this paper. So that's their way of making sure that you've got this to them. So this one has general liability, which is included in the BOP. They have the automobile liability. This one has an umbrella policy, and then the workers' compensation. So one of the nice things, if you're doing business all with one person or one company, is we can get this all in one form. If you have your workers' comp, which we're running into a lot with Paychex or someone else, they have to give you that form. So we can get it all in one place, take care of it for you, and save you a lot of headache.
If you have an umbrella policy, you have agents, for instance, real estate agents going around, we want to make sure that your company is insured. What's your obligation then to the insurance company? Do you have to get their driver's license, and what kind of information do you have to provide?
When we write a commercial auto policy, we get all the driver's license numbers and all the cars are listed. If you look into the commercial auto, there's several different options. This company has all owned autos, so any auto that they own is covered on their policy. But they can also buy other things where it lists non-owned autos there. We have it on their general liability, so that's not a big deal. Hired autos and any auto. So as you get a little broader, it gets a little bit more expensive. So if they forget to tell us about a car, it's still covered. But we'll put the employee's information in. On your personal policies, if someone's got a speeding ticket, that's a big deal. They can bump your premium. On the commercial stuff, it's just kind of expected. If you've got 50 employees, you're going to have some speeding tickets. But if they run and someone's got DUIs or something, then you'll have to get rid of that person.
But if it's not an employee, it's an agent, and they're using their vehicle, you still get, sort of an umbrella policy, you still get their driver's license to make sure that there's that requirement.
It's really not. If you're talking about just covering it under the liability and then having the non-owned auto, no one asks for the driver's license numbers that I know of. And I don't think they follow it real close. Reality. Professional liability is listed on this policy, and then the workers' comp is on there too. So we kind of have everything for this person. Questions? Yeah.
Can you think of any unusual circumstances that are not covered? One that I think of that happened to us once is when we were in a downtown location, AEP PSO is substations. They had a fire at a substation. They shut it down for a little bit. So when they restarted it, there was a surge through the lines. When it reached my office building, it surged and zapped my voicemail box, add-on to my voice system, which was a $900 unit. AEP doesn't have to pay it, the landlord doesn't have to pay it, because the way the state law is written with the utility, that was not something they were responsible, but also my insurance carrier was not responsible for it. So can you think
Because
of,
it was AEP's fault.
it was, yeah, because it came from the power surge. So can you think of any things that we might think, we're covered for everything, we've done everything he said, you know, are there any, you know, acts of war, flood if you're in a low spot, you know, electrical surge, things that we might not normally think of, but you go, oh, this is some things business owners forget.
If there is, we'll come up with a policy and charge you premium for
There you
it.
go.
I'm pretty confident about that.
You know, covers stupid, I think.
You know, I'm surprised AEP didn't take care of that, to tell you the truth. Your policy, I think, would have covered it. It probably just got down to your deductible was so low. It's like,
No,
why mess
it
with
was State Farm,
$900?
and we got pretty serious with it and with AEP. And we got a copy of the state law that exempts AEP.
From anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just out there in no man's land.
It's just out there in no man's land. Has to do with something about how they were protected from those things when the state laws were written.
Just like suing the government with AEP. We see in the personal lines, City of Tulsa's sewer backs up. It's not your fault, so it's not covered under your home insurance. But City of Tulsa's sewage comes into your house. And there's actually now something that we put on a policy, and it's like $25 a year, but it covers all that kind of stuff. Because Tulsa should cover it, but they won't.
Okay.
Sometimes, like Glenpool has lately, we've seen that. And I can't tell you for sure on a commercial policy, but I would think there should be an option somewhere
Okay.
that would do that, but I, off the top of my head, I can't tell you.
Okay, so maybe there's some kind of guide or somewhere. I mean, if the building had been hit by lightning,
It was
that's
covered.
weather related, it would cover it.
Yeah.
The building had caught on fire as a result of anything, covered. Surge comes through the line, zaps something, not covered. And it's not the kind of a tool that would be plugged into a surge protection.
We saw that a lot during the ice storm, December of '07, because the power lines are falling. And if it's on your property, it's covered. But if it's not on your property, it's off-site somewhere, it's not covered. But most of our companies still went ahead and took care of it. But I'm guessing there's an endorsement, but I can't tell you for sure.
I hate those things.
Endorsements? Insurance is,
No, I just hate when something falls in, because
In
even
the
in my
gap.
side of the world, there's things that, it's just the way it is. Nobody's
Can't
stepping up, taking ownership.
Well, and if as a business owner you knew, you'd probably go pay that little extra to have the insurance. But if you don't, if no one's ever pointed it out to you that here's a gap, you need to either set aside money for that or buy an extra surge protector, whatever it is.
as somebody that sells insurance, I will tell you, everybody thinks it'll never happen to them. And the day you're selling someone a policy, they want the cheapest thing, and they don't want the
Yes.
options.
Right.
I force people to take uninsured motorist coverage. You know, we don't write minimum liability, and they fuss with me all the time. And, I mean, there's just a lot of things that we just flat won't sell unless it's on the policy. And people just cry and scream and yell, and I lose a lot of clients over it, but
You sleep well at night.
I know what happens is, they want the cheapest thing today, but when there's a claim, they want the best coverage. And it really is a you get what you pay for kind of world, so.
You know, there's a funny thing happened to me. Really wasn't funny, but I had an ATV and 2 dirt bikes stolen from my farm. The insurance wouldn't pay for it because they said I had to have it on my residence. And the state law backed that up. But the other thing, when I was talking about that, and I said, well then, my lawnmower, when I take it down to my farm and mow my yard, then I've lost the coverage on that mower.
When you take it off the property.
To mow anybody else's property or my own, if it's not the residence, I lose the coverage on that mower. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. But I had them send me the copy of the Kansas.
Because you couldn't believe it.
There's things.
You can't be kidding me.
You're just looking for a reason not to pay. Give me
That's what I
proof.
thought. That's what I did it for.
Yeah.
But I lost it.
You know, we see both sides of it, you know, and people people want coverage for things that they don't want to pay for, and then, but a vehicle normally, even a tractor or something like that, is, there's a policy you can buy for ATVs. We sell 1,000 of them at Progressive, it seems like. Your tractors and things like that, there's policies for all those things that are like vehicles. A regular lawnmower is personal property. So if you take anything that's your personal property and you're out anywhere in the world, it's covered. So that's kind of,
That didn't sound right to
it's
you.
not, yeah, it doesn't sound
It
right.
didn't sound right to me either, but fortunately, they're titled vehicles, and I registered them at the National Register, and I got 2 of them back.
Are we ready to bridge?
Susan, yes.
I'm gonna go fast. There's a lot of information in here. It's talking about healthcare reform, also known as Affordability Care Act. I'm Susan McGinnis with BenX. I'm a partner owner in BenX. My spouse is also, we're co-partners. I call him the godfather of insurance. And together, we're just a great team, and we both enjoy this technical crap, in a way. So, the ACA impacts, this is some things that we're gonna go over today. We're gonna talk about the small group employer, ER's employer changes. There's shops, there's health plan, there's a printout that yes, the printout is on the right side. If you wanna write notes or ask questions to save them for later. Health plan changes, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about one slide on individuals. Taxes and fees, employee retirement security, we call that ERISA, and then the value of the agent. I added this legal disclaimer. This is general information about legal matters, and it's for informational purposes only. Don't, I have E&O. This is not an option as an employer. We gotta deal with it. So the first thing you gotta ask yourself, are you a large employer or are you a small employer? You are a small employer if you have full-time equivalent, 50 or more full-time equivalent. Full-time equivalent, that's a key word, equivalent, is if you have part-time people, they're included. If you have seasonal employees, they're included. There's a formula for them. And you need to take that into consideration. Also, controlled group rules. If you're an owner of more than one company, it's payroll, employees, all of what I talked about in the first bullet, for all the employees that you own and all the companies. If you are deemed 50 plus, then you gotta play by the big boy rules with all your companies, even though one of them may only have 5 employees there.
So if you have 3 companies, each one of those companies has less than 50, but total.
Cumulative, yes.
Cumulative, they're more than 50, then you gotta play by the 50 rule?
For all 3 companies. And if there's any audits, penalties for anything, we'll talk about that in a minute, then they're assessed individually by, not as a group.
What if, okay, so even if they're different entities?
For purposes of PPACA or ACA, it's called a bunch of different things, Obamacare, healthcare reform, it's all the controlled groups all count to see if you're a large group or not,
Okay.
okay?
So it's common ownership?
I call it common ownership. If you're a business owner of more than one, if your name is on any other company, then that draws the companies in.
I won't take your time to answer that question, but that's something I'm gonna have to look into.
Okay.
Because if I was an owner in other businesses, but not a majority owner, those kinds of questions, so, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, here's one of them small group employer changes. Y'all have heard about the exchanges that each state is supposed to do? You as the employer are required to give notice to all your employees. This is small group. Forget 50 small, this is all employers. To give notice to your employees that the exchange exists, how they go about it, all the information about it. Only hold on, that's been delayed. Special update, the U.S. Department of Labor has delayed the original March 1st, 2013 deadline. It's been moved because they don't have the details on it. But it is something that's falling on the employer's responsibility to notify the employees once it does come into play.
I know you got a lot to cover, but.
Yes.
And so how does Oklahoma or many of the other states who are not approving the exchanges affect that?
there's nothing to notify. It doesn't exist. That's why the DOL delayed the deadline for employers to notify. Half the states are saying, no, we don't want it, goodbye. So we'll see how it unfolds. But it's an employer's responsibility once it does come out. And let me say this, the DOL will provide model notice templates for employers to use. Once it all comes unfolded, there'll be forms for you, but it's your responsibility as employer to notify the employees
Right,
that
but
it
if they put all
exists.
those rules out and Oklahoma doesn't ever participate,
This is federal law, that's all I know.
So you still have to give them notice whether your state has it or not.
No, it's
No.
been delayed.
Yeah.
Stay
I know,
tuned,
you're
stay
right.
tuned,
I think
stay
I heard
tuned.
this morning about the nullification law going through Congress right at this moment.
Bring it out in the house.
Okay, another obligation of the employer, small employer, we're talking about, is that, this is really both sizes, is the summary of benefit coverage, SBC. For those of you that offer group health plans, you'll see now that you get a benefit summary when you pick a plan. It's usually a 2, maybe 3-sheeter. That's not what this is talking about. This is talking about a summary of benefits and coverage. And there's guidelines to how many pages it can be, the size of the font, everything is in there. It's to be given upon application, when an employee makes application, the first day of coverage if there are any changes, special enrollees upon renewal, or even upon request for the employee. Now, in these documents, a lot of the employers that are fully insured, meaning you buy a policy that covers everything, because you can be self-insured or fully insured. Most all small groups are self-insured or fully insured. The insurance companies are devising these. It's not the employer's responsibility to build it. The insurance companies are building it, developing it, but what they're not doing, not all of them are administering it the same. Some are saying, it's on our website, Mr. Employer, go get it, and you distribute it to your employees. Some are saying, no, we got it, we're mailing it direct to the employee's home. So it depends on what your insurance company is doing it, but it's the employer's responsibility to provide it.
2 questions there. Is there a tiny company, 6, 10, 12 employees?
Small group,
Is there a small size at which none of this applies?
no.
Okay, so,
If you offer a group health plan, then all of this applies to you.
okay. And next,
Even if there's only one person on the plan.
and then if you have a broker agent that's working for you to help you do all this, does any of this fall on them to do for you? Is that
None.
just part of your relationship with them saying, look, we want you to do this for us, but it doesn't fall on them to do it?
Okay, I am a broker.
Okay.
I have clients that I insure.
Right.
I have a strong consultative style to me. I see myself as an extension of your HR department.
Okay.
It's not my obligation, but it's my ethics, my work ethics that tells me, because a lot of small employers are connected in a way. I don't take any legal obligation of it. My attitude is, I'm telling you, here's what to be in compliance with the law. What you do with it is up to you. I've got my CYA.
Right.
Okay? Okay, so the SBC, that's in play right now. You don't develop it, but it's your obligation to go get it and make sure your employees are getting it. The health FSA contributions, flexible spending accounts, that's what that's called. I think most people have heard about that over the years. Every year, with the flexible spending accounts, employers who offer it, they can set the limit on what it is. It was previously unlimited. The federal government now says as of this year, 2013, your plan year, which is January 1st, is the max is $2,500. Might not apply to you, but that's the annual max now. The Medicare tax increase for high earners, anyone earning in excess of $200,000 is going to be taxed at a rate of 0.9% on the excess for Medicare purposes only. This is not employer match. It's just that the employee has to do it and discuss it with your CPA on that end. This is effective 2014. PACA, ACA limits the 90-day limitation on waiting periods. When you have a new hire, they have a waiting period. A common one was 6 months. It really depends on the turnover of your company. 90 days the max nowadays. You can go down, anything less, you just can't go over a 90-day max. New full-time employee definition for medical insurance. 30 hours a week is the new 40. The new definition of dependent is employee and child to age 26. It does not include the spouse.
Even if they're married.
It does not matter if they're married.
Say it one more time.
The new definition for dependent under ACA is a dependent child up to age 26. The spouse is not included as a dependent. If you just kind of absorb this, you'll see in the end how it's kind of coming together. Wellness programs, if you're an employer and you offer wellness programs, previously, and there's a bunch of parameters about what you can and can't do on wellness. You can't have an incentive, a carrot for everybody to lose weight if you have disabled employees that are in a wheelchair. They can't participate in a run, so there can't be a carrot for that run. Your employees have to be, all of your employees have to be eligible for the carrot, or there could be discrimination lawsuits, okay? Got me with the concept there? If you did have a wellness plan and the carrot was, we will save you, the max we could save you is 20% off the insurance premium which you pay as a carrot. We'll lower your health care cost, your health insurance premium. That max was 20% and it's increasing to 30%. That's in our favor for a bigger carrot if you have a wellness and if you have a plan that designs like that. Small business tax credit. Some of this is already into play. It's kind of manifesting into something else because my partner, Harry, the godfather of insurance, he and I, when I told him this, he's like, no, that's already in play. I'm like, it's different now. So we're having our differences of opinion. How it reads is this is starting with your plan year for up to 2 years starting in 2014. Eligible small businesses with fewer than 25 full-time employees with an average annual wage of below $50,000 that buy health coverage through a shop. A shop is a small health options plan that's a division of the exchange that does not exist yet. It's for small businesses to purchase health insurance through the exchange. That's the shop, okay? And pay at least half of the premium cost for employees may receive a tax credit of up to 50% of the contribution. That's the small business tax credit in 2014. Again, consult your CPA for more tax information.
Can I ask you one scene back? These are going to be rules for all insurance companies? They're not going to include the spouse as a dependent?
You're going to see different language.
I did not like that.
The language is going to change. Now, we talked before, and her husband is a retiree of the military.
But with just that, you know,
Yeah. I don't know that it's going to affect them because
Right.
they're their own. I don't know. Okay, so now we have guarantee availability of coverage and limits on variation of premiums. You hear of the pre-existing conditions, people being penalized, can't get coverage for this or that. They're not saying guarantee issue, which means no health questions asked. They're not saying that, but they're lightening the load and they're only looking at age. They're underwriting you for age, tobacco use, family size, and geography. No other medical conditions. That's the only thing you get. I think we call this community rating. I'm not sure. I've been needing to ask Harry on that, but that's what they define community rating as, is geography. So they cannot ask you any health questions. That's the beauty, which is going to skyrocket. Think of yourself as if I was going to insure, if I'm insuring you, I don't know anything about you, but here's a premium. You can't do that and stay in business, right? You got to know, I got to know your anticipated known medical conditions for your claim so I can give you an accurate premium.
Susan,
Huh?
are they going, now you said age, tobacco use, family size, and geography, are they going off the sex? Because a 25-year-old girl is typically more expensive to insure than a 25-year-old
Those days are gone.
male.
Those days are going to be gone.
None of that anymore.
Aren't your carriers already raising premiums?
Oh, yes.
It's not too terribly. Our renewals are looking pretty good.
Ours went down last year.
Yeah, but it's not hitting yet. 2014 is going to be the perfect storm. You wait.
But it went up instantly like 2 years ago when this first came out though, right?
Yes.
There were little bumps, yeah. Okay. Annual limitations and out-of-pocket cost sharing, 2014. Non-grandfathered group, non-grandfathered is a technical, I won't even go there. most of my groups, and most groups are not grandfathered plans, must ensure cost sharing under the plan that does not exceed certain limitations. So they're gonna say $2,000 deductible on an individual and a $4,000 on a family is gonna be the maximum that's gonna be allowed. We're hoping that the high deductible health plans that are $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 deductibles, we hope that they're gonna still exist. But we don't know, we're waiting for
So what
that.
happens to your HSA? They're always typical high deductible.
I know. I have one and I love them. A lot of my clients are on them. They're great tax vehicles for savings if you use them right. So anyway, the annual limitations is what that's talking about on your out-of-pocket cost sharing. And that can be a good thing. They're saying we don't want it. They're keeping that out-of-pocket cost down because I had a client in the last 2 weeks, I quoted him a $25,000 health deductible. Health, $25,000, they exist. Wow. But they're healthy and they don't have any claims. I just want something as a major coverage in case something major happens. That's all I want. So there it is. Okay, here's another one. No annual benefit limits and no pre-existing conditions. Kind of talked about that before. Annual limits on essential health benefits. Essential health benefits, there's 10 essential health benefits. I think Oklahoma policies pretty much cover them now, but ACA says they must include that. And there's no annual benefit limits. Lifetime maximums are gone. It's unlimited. Okay? Effective plan years 2014 to exclude, they're not permitted to exclude individuals from health coverage based on pre-existing conditions. So we already talked about that. Now here's the individual aspect. Starting in 2014, the law requires everybody to have coverage, right? Penalties for non-compliance are in your handouts. That's the one, it's the right on top. We highlighted them as a nutshell. That's where your eye wants to go if you want to know what your individual penalty. Now right now we're not talking about employer or group. We're talking about individual penalties, individual coverage. There's premium subsidies through the exchange. When an individual goes to the exchange, employers go through the shop in the exchange. We're talking exchange. The law allows, it's based on income. If you're at Medicare, Medicaid eligibility to 400% of the poverty level. If you're in the range, then you qualify for this subsidy and you have to go through the exchange to get the subsidy. There's no reason to go through the exchange unless you qualify, because there's still going to be carriers and markets in the free market system, the free world out here. So the exchange and the shop is for only if you qualify for a tax credit. The next screen is, here's the federal poverty guideline. 100% is Medicaid, and the government has these other ones, but 400, if you make, that's the column that you're looking for, and your employees, if they're going to qualify, because it's going to come into play here in a minute, so hang with me. 400% based on household. Now that was 2013 federal poverty. I don't know if it's going to change next year, but this is 2013.
So back up real quick. So a family of 6 could make $126,000.
And qualify and go through the exchange and get a tax credit. Provided they do not have other coverage through their employer or Indian coverage or, okay? So if an employee or if an individual has coverage option to go through their employer and it meets 2 guidelines, it has the essential benefits and it's priced right, can't be priced so high that the employee can't afford it. As long as it's priced right, we'll get into that in just a minute, they cannot go through the exchange. But if you don't have those 2 things right as an employer and you get one employee that goes out to the exchange, boom, you're going to be penalized as the employer for not being in compliance. Okay? Now here's taxes and fees. I'm trying to cover a lot here really quick. The taxes and fees is based on a handout. This was something that I found was extremely clean cut and easy to read, and this is from one of my carriers, Coventry. But they've color-coded this, and they say, oh, I lost mine. I had my sheet. These are there's 6 different taxes and fees that we're going to be hit with. And this form briefly says what it is, what it costs, who's responsible, and how long. Is this temporary or is this permanent? So it summarizes it really quick, the way I like. I'm a queen of brevity. So you have a patient-centered, the first one, the patient-centered outcome research. That's for evidence-based research that's intended to help people. These doctors are all supposed to follow an evidence-based to help you get healed faster. That's what that is. And the fee amount, it talks about that. It kind of goes on a scale, but it's $1 for covered employee. I can promise you, I can't promise you, I'm not going to promise. My guess is all of these fees, even though it says it's the insurance company, it's going to be trickled down to your premiums. Okay, but and when will we get this fee? The fee ends for plan or policy years beginning on it. So it ends in October 19 is when that fee ends. Then you have an annual health insurance industry fee. This is to help fund premium subsidies, the exchange, or cost sharing reductions for individuals who purchase through the exchange. It's based on 2 to 2.5% in 2014 and 3 to 4% years later. It is permanent. It goes into effect 2014, and it is permanent. The third one, transitional reinsurance program assessment fee. It helps stabilize premiums for coverage on individual markets during the 2014 and 16 years, to stabilize coverage for individual markets. It's because it's no health questions asked. It's my take on it. It's a $63 per individual enrolled under the policy. This may be, I was talking about it with the godfather of insurance this morning. We were also disagreeing on this. It's not part of the insurance. It's a fee. My guess is it will be a separate line item, like you would see shipping and handling when you order something online. Just a separate line item added to your premium. That's my guess. And it's phased out after 2016. So there's end in sight on that one. There's a risk adjustment program and fees. This is to spread the financial risk borne by insurance carriers in the individual and small group markets more evenly. Okay, whatever. Levels the playing field inside and outside the exchange. Because see, the prices inside the exchange have to be the same as outside the exchange. But inside is, yeah. So it levels the playing field, and they indicate 8 cents per member per month, and it is permanent as of 2014. Okay, who
I
can
think
handle
all
these?
these are permanent. I mean, they also told us our roads wouldn't be toll roads anymore. So.
I know. Okay, here's a good one. The fifth one, the health insurance marketplace. This is the exchange for financially self-sustaining. It's supposed to be financially self-sustaining by 2015 on. To date, the federal government has given $3 billion advance money to half the states, relatively half the states that have said we're going to do an exchange, or we're going to do one in partnership with the federal government. There's 3 ways to do an exchange. They're going to do it, they're going to do it in partnership, or nope, we want the federal government to do it. Oklahoma says nope, you want to do it, you come do it. We're not doing it. So, but today, roughly half the states have said we'll do it ourselves and or in partnership with the government. $3 billion to date seed money has been given. See, they need to recoup all this seed money. They need to recoup a lot of money. It's coming around the pipe. So, and that is permanent to whatever that fee is, how much the fees cost, 3.5% monthly. The annual, now the last was the Cadillac excise tax. Now, you just saw me say that you can't, they won't let your deductible be very high. They want it low, 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 low. So in here they're saying if you have a rich plan, then we're going to tax you on everything above.
What is a rich plan?
It'll be decided later. And this is permanent.
Because I'm so confused because you'll hear you will if I explain to somebody what I have or I'm thinking about doing for my employees, they go, "Wow, that's really generous. That's really great for your employees. That's a Cadillac plan." I'm like, what are you talking about?
Cadillac just means really rich, like a $500 deductible.
So super
Anything
low
above-
to no deductible.
Anything above that $2,000 that they're talking about, $2,000 for individual and $4,000, anything above that would be a Cadillac plan, is my guess, is anything above
Okay,
that.
wait a minute. Anything above that? You meaning that
Or below that.
Okay,
below
so even
that.
$1,000 deductible per employee might
Would
be
be.
considered Cadillac?
Mm-hmm.
$1,000 deductible would be considered rich.
My guess is, anything below what they said, it can't be any higher than this.
Oh my stars, okay.
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 Anyway, that's just as of today what's going on with that. Okay? Now,
Gosh, I'm getting a headache.
you can say, now, ERISA compliance, this is also
Glad you
something.
did this after we ate.
Huh?
Glad you're doing this after we ate.
Well, that's why, yeah.
bottle
No. Yes. If you're not in compliance with, now I talked about the EBSA, forget everything I talked about there. For every plan design that you have as an employer, and I don't think this is happening nationwide, for every dental plan, medical plan, vision plan, any plan that you offer that's a group chassis plan through an employer must have a summary plan description. Now they have WRAP documents, a WRAP SPD to combine all of them together. But it's supposed to exist. And SPD is to be given within 90 days of plan enrollment and within 120 days after the plan becomes subject to ERISA, which it already is subject to ERISA. And if you make any plan changes, you have an SMM, and that has to be given out. This sounds like it's mumbo jumbo. It is, but there are penalties, and the federal government has brought on almost 1,000 new auditors because they're looking to raise money to help with all of this expense. They're looking to raise money in all kinds of ways. The enforcer of ERISA is the Employee Benefit Security Administration, EBSA. 2010, they did 3,000 audits. 2011, 4,000. 2013 projections. They're going to have 3,900 civil investigations, 105 indictments, 320 criminal investigations, 4,300 reporting compliance reviews, 200 congressional office briefings. This was their report to the IRS. IRS DOL, 11 webcasts, 11 compliance seminars for plan sponsors, that means employers, and participants, and they project to raise $1.1 billion through this effort.
How much are they going to spend?
Yeah.
Plus, the
It's
new,
like an unmarked police car.
yes, the DOL is developing a new consumer assistance webpage, allows users to submit questions and complaints electronically, and it's also available in Spanish. And that's the website. They're going to use this compliance webinars and webcasts to educate people that it's there. One disgruntled employee. So, and here is the penalties. Here's 2 case examples. For failure to not provide the SPD to the participant, $241,000. I'm sure there was a repeated, I asked you 3 times, here's my proof, and you told me no. Took it to the lawyer. It's not just because they had to ask. That's not what we're talking about. If an employee asks, you have 30 days in which to comply and give them an SPD. They have no legal bounds if they've asked and you've provided it. Another case study was awarded $10,780 for failure to provide SPD to participant.
Do they encourage children to report their parents? Just curious.
The penalties, HHS, which is developing all these rules for ACA, they can apply $1,000 for each willful failure to provide the SPD. The IRS can impose $100 per day per individual affected. If you have a company of 100, one employee says, I asked, they could come in and say it's $100 per day. And from what I understand, there's no end where they can go back. There's no statute of limitations. Don't quote me on that, though. Are you recording me? The DOL can impose civil and criminal penalties. That's who can do the criminal penalties. So there's my little cartoon. Even though our jails are full, but okay. So that's kind of a real quick where it's going. The value of the agent. I am a National Association of Health Underwriters agent. It's a national organization for health underwriters. They're located in DC. We're legislatively active. We have been fighting this healthcare reform for a long, long time. I beg and plead other agents who sell what I sell to come join me because in DC, he who has the largest groups wins. That's just the nature of politics. Because you can raise more money, you can, yeah, that's the way it works. So, you have the power to ask your broker, are you a NAHU member? And if you want to continue being my broker, I want you to be. You can do that. They can say, no, I'm not going to, I'm not. But if they're not in the know, I don't know where they're getting their information for. And then all of my clients receive this HR 360, which is a website service that I provide. It is a plethora of information for the HR. You can go in there and do a question, and within 1 or 2 clicks, you've got what your answers are, what you're supposed to be doing. Your posters to SPDs. I did look up to see if there was a generic shell form of an SPD that I could use. My own company didn't have an SPD. So I'm got to get in compliance myself. And so anyway, there's a whole employee handbooks, hourly wages, salary wages, all kinds of information. Anything you need to know, it's at HR 360. So if you want that, you got to get it through me. No, they only offer that service through brokers for our clients. So, and I know there's other type of websites out there, but I know through through SHRMS, which is the Society of Human Resources Association, that's a local organization for HR professionals. They have a similar site. I'm a member of that. I find that website much more cumbersome to use, and I really enjoy HR 360. And that's just some other stuff that NAHU has done to help develop this ACA. There's some things like the 90-day waiting period. They wanted 30 days. Our organization got at least 90 days. So there's some little things in there that we've been picking at all along the way to help make this as not as constrained. I mean, you just feel like you can't move, you can't breathe. And you add on what Chip said about being a litigious society. Man, you just got to make sure you have all your ducks in a row and you're covered, and life is good then. And don't tick off any employees.
Why look at me?
So, if anybody has any questions?
Well, I guess I have this question is observation. I don't know if you're an employer like us and you've recently raised deductibles to keep premiums affordable for both the firm and people who want to buy in for their family. We raised deductibles from 0 to 1,000, which was a really big change for people. If we change it to 2,000, we're so small, there's 6 employees, it is not affordable for us to enroll in an HSA or FSA because of the administration costs and things like that. It's just not, to my understanding, the administration cost to be involved in an HSA or an SSA is there are fees to do that. No, you don't think so? Okay, because so I was like, well.
No, I know so.
Okay, because it seems.
Commercial again. Can I do that?
Huh?
They set us up with HSAs.
Okay.
And we don't pay any fees.
I've had an HSA myself for 8 years, and there's no fees.
Oh, okay, maybe it's
It's a
that
wonderful
Community
thing.
Care is not a qualifying insurance carrier for it.
Community Care doesn't have HSAs.
That's what it
They don't
is.
offer HSAs. They offer HRAs,
Okay.
health reimbursement accounts.
And Sooner Care is gonna go away, right?
We don't know. You know, you hear about Insure Oklahoma.
We got
That
the
was the
best
other one,
product.
yeah.
Insure
and price for
Oklahoma,
a
not sure
community
where
care.
that's going to
But
come into
then
play
we
either.
go that route. But if we raise deductibles again to be in compliance so that we're not a Cadillac.
Well, let me tell you this.
Then,
None of the carriers are going to offer plans that are not in compliance.
okay.
They're going to be revamping all their offerings.
Okay.
So I wouldn't worry about coming back and making sure that everything I just said, the carriers are going to make sure that they're in compliance.
Okay.
That's not your responsibility. Just know that that's coming down. That's why some of that stuff I would label, it's health plan changes, and some of it was employer responsibility.
Okay.
I didn't clarify that, I'm sorry.
Well, it sounds like we're moving in the right direction anyway. We went from 0 to 1,000, so
I didn't even know a zero deductible was possible.
it was pretty old. It grandfathered for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. You finally let go of now you're non-grandfathered. There's a couple that was like, you can't make me. But once you change anything, one change, you're in. Well, my card, my information is there. If I can help you further, if there's any area that you want to hone in on and need to know that applies to you, I'm just a phone call away.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And we are, just so you know, from the chamber, we're going to try to do multiple sides of the ACA as this year goes on. We were actually working on getting someone from Blue Cross Blue Shield to kind of come and give us even more of a big picture from what they're seeing later in the year. I mean, tomorrow all this could change. we really don't know, but we're really trying to make sure that all of our small businesses stay somewhat ahead of the changes, so no one's shocked. Anything you ever need, just call us, let us know. Of course, call Susan. Anything. And that HR 360 that she was talking about is awesome. That's how we revamped the Chamber's employee handbook. And I just got the entire template from there and just made everything work. So.